Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. We're going to start today's video with this picture. This picture of Viktor Orban meeting with Zelensky in Kyiv. And 2 days ago, I just assumed this was an ordinary diplomatic visit between two heads of state. They are next-door neighbors. But I was wrong. Viktor Orban was told to go to Ukraine by Putin to offer a ceasefire in person. Which is incredibly awkward because Viktor Orban has not visited Ukraine in 14 years, not since before the Maidan Revolution of 2014. So for 14 years, Viktor Orban did what the Russians wanted. Don't go to Ukraine. Don't recognize the governments of Zelensky and Poroshenko as legitimate. But now he went because Putin wanted him to. Of course, Ukraine rejects Orban's ceasefire proposal during their talks in Kyiv. And sure enough, the headlines this morning, Hungary's Orban to meet with Putin in Moscow following his trip to Kyiv. He's giving a first-hand report to his superior and then collecting his briefcase full of money or gold bricks or whatever the Russians pay him. So Russia is really amping up the rhetoric, the propaganda, asking for a ceasefire. It's the Russians begging for a ceasefire, trying to trick the Ukrainians or make it look like the Ukrainians don't want peace. But it's the Russians who are panicking. Russia's resource base for waging such a large-scale war in Ukraine has its limits. It's not unlimited. And Putin knows this. Thus, all that we could have peace in Istanbul complaining, as well as his absurd and inadequate ultimatums to Ukraine in the West that are barely consistent with Putin's actual situation on the ground. Moscow is investing major efforts in pushing this narrative. Ukraine can't win. Russia is winning. So Ukraine better sue for peace before it's too late. This is Ukraine's last chance. When in reality, Ukraine has facts. Just look at the map. Here is where the Russians started 2.5 years ago. And in 2.5 years of war, they've gone from here to here. 25 kilometers. Hundreds of thousands of people dead. Russia's on the verge of bankruptcy. And their military has advanced 25 kilometers towards their stated objective, getting the entirety of the Donetsk Oblast. At the rate the Russians are advancing, it's going to take them another 12 or 15 years to get to the territorial boundary of the Donetsk Oblast. This is absurd. So here's President Zelensky's argument why all this talk of a ceasefire coming from the Russians is nonsense to Ukraine. So first and foremost, the ceasefire is an important element in any plan to finish the war. A ceasefire is not finishing the war. We've been there. It would just be a frozen conflict. And it would be a frozen conflict for the aggressor. It would be frozen on our territory, and our people would be under their occupation. This gives a clear advantage to one side. It's easy to offer different proposals of ceasefires, but what's important? It's important to find an answer to what would come after. It's a matter of not just the victory. There are many people talking about ceasefires, and it's fine that people are talking, but what would happen next? That is the question. For example, what's the next step? What's the third step? What would be the step when Putin breaks the ceasefire? Because Putin has broken every ceasefire he's agreed to in the Donbass region the last 10 years. After the ceasefire, a month after the ceasefire, will he pull the troops out of Ukraine? Who guarantees that he will pull the troops out of the occupied territories? And all of a sudden, there's silence. Nobody has an answer. I'm not accusing. I just want to explain that we're at war, and we, the Ukrainians, understand this. So there's two groups of people. There's the people who have always supported Russia or been sympathetic to Russia, and they're universally all on the same page now, calling for a ceasefire. And then there's the people who actually know Russia, Russia's neighbors. Is Finland calling for a ceasefire? Is Estonia calling for a ceasefire? Is Poland calling for a ceasefire? Of course not, because they actually know and understand the Russians, and there's no ceasefire you can get from Putin that he won't immediately violate as soon as it benefits him. And kudos to the German Chancellor. German Chancellor Scholz rejects any ceasefire proposals that would lead to Ukraine's capitulation. Here's the clip from when he's speaking in the German parliament. I'll link this down below if you want to see it for yourself. But this is what he says. From my point of view, a ceasefire that involves the surrender of Ukraine is one that we as Germany must never support. Thank you so much to the German Chancellor for this strong statement. So who is dumb enough to call for a ceasefire on Russia's terms and just force Ukraine to capitulate? Trump considers NATO deal with Putin potentially to block Ukraine's NATO ascension. Trump likely favors appeasing Putin with Ukraine territories to end the war, according to Political. Trump's plan likely involves reducing the U.S. role in NATO, that's what Russia wants, barring Ukraine's entry into the defensive alliance, which is what Russia wants, and pressuring Ukraine to give up land to Russia, which is what Russia wants. People on the internet love conspiracy theories. And this just happened 2 or 3 days ago. This is the Dulles Airport in Virginia. And this is a Russian government plane parked right next to Trump's plane. Now you might be saying, could be a coincidence, but how many Russian government planes were in the United States at this time and date? 1. The probability of Trump's plane showing up at the exact same parking location as this Russian government jet on the same day in the same location is near impossible. So if you're a conspiracy theorist, get on this, because something was up. For some reason, all peace proposals for Ukraine include taking something from Ukraine and giving something to Russia. Putin wants to show that he got something, while he continues to brainwash the children of Russia, to prepare them for the next war, to prepare them for breaking the ceasefire and taking more Ukrainian territory in 2, 3, 4, or 5 years from now. Concerning Trump's peace proposals and calls for a ceasefire, Putin says he takes Trump's comments on ending Ukraine war very seriously. Here is what Putin said at the podium yesterday in response to Trump making noise about ending the war in Ukraine on day 1 of his presidency.
But the fact that Mr. Trump, as a presidential candidate, says that he's ready and wants to stop the war in Ukraine, we take that very seriously. Well, I haven't seen his ideas on how exactly he's going to do that, and that is the key question. But I have no doubt that he says that sincerely, and we support that.
So that's Vladimir Putin saying he supports Trump, even though he's not seen his ideas or proposals for ending the war. And the reason why is Trump's ideas and proposals for ending the war are just going to be exactly what Putin and the Russians want. Trump's going to say, you don't want Ukraine to join NATO? Fine. Ukraine can never join NATO. We'll give you what you want. You want to keep these 4 oblasts and get some extra cities that you've failed to take in 2.5 years? Well, then fine. We're going to force Ukraine to give up Kherson City, Zaporizhia City, the rest of the Donetsk Oblast. Whatever you want, Russia, we'll give it to you. That's Trump's peace plan. So here's a tweet from Bill Kristol, breaking. Hitler says he supports Chamberlain's plan for Czechoslovakia. We have to learn from our history. When a genocidal dictator invades his neighbor, giving him what he wants will never satiate him. These wars will never stop if Russia is allowed to keep anything. And definitely, Russia's going to attack Ukraine again in the future, unless Ukraine can become part of the NATO alliance. This is why they're demanding these 2 things. This is what Trump is offering them. But reality will be very different. Ukrainian member of parliament dismisses Trump's NATO and peace plan rhetoric. And President Zelensky says Trump should reveal his full plan on ending Russia's war. Trump's an idiot and he's a liar, and his standard talking point now is he can end the war even before he takes office. All he has to do is be elected in November, and between November and January, he will magically force Russia and Ukraine to agree to a peace deal. How he would do that, what the details would be, he's not saying. It's a secret. You got to vote for him first. I mean, it's so stupid. It's so childish. Like, I don't know how to process talking about Trump every day because it's so stupid. Everything about it is just so stupid, guys. But Putin is humiliating himself to go in front of these press conferences and everything is scripted. These are not real journalists asking him real questions. So this is on the agenda. Putin wants to talk about ceasefires every week now because he's desperate. He needs one. He wants one. So here is a fake Russian journalist asking his president a question. Vladimir Putin, in your opinion, is a ceasefire along the line of contact with Ukraine possible before the start of peace talks without preconditions, at least to increase the chance of success? Or is this also a subject of negotiations? Thank you. Putin's now going to answer. You know, I will remind you of some things. When our troops were standing near Kyiv, we received an offer and even an urgent request from our Western partners to cease fire, to cease hostilities, so that certain things could be done on the Ukrainian side. And we did that. There was such an episode, we did it. The Ukrainian side did not cease hostilities, and then we were told that the Ukrainian official authorities cannot control all their armed units because they are allegedly some units that do not obey the central authorities. That's what we were told. I'm not overstating or understating anything. This is the first thing. Secondly, we were asked to withdraw our troops from Kyiv in order to create conditions for the final conclusion of a peace agreement. We did this and were again faced with deception. All the agreements that reached in Istanbul were thrown into the trash. And this has happened repeatedly. Therefore, we simply cannot declare a ceasefire now in the hope that the other side will take some positive steps. Well, this is some serious revisionist history that Russia never wanted to take Kyiv. That's what they've been saying for over 2 years now, that those first 2 months was a feint in order to make progress in the Donbass region, to distract the Ukrainians. That's what they were saying. But now they're saying they were lied to. They could have taken Kyiv if they wanted to, but because Russia is so benevolent and such a fantastic nation of people, they showed mercy on Ukraine. When in reality, Russia, we have the tapes, we have the video. You sent your best paratroopers to the Hostomel airport to create this air bridge to Kyiv for resupply, and you got smashed. I've seen the GoPro video. You got annihilated at this airport. These were your best soldiers. And then there's the 35-mile armored convoy that ended in failure. Do you remember these pictures? Do you remember these videos? The Western media called it a convoy. In reality, it was a traffic jam and a major tactical blunder. 48 hours after the first satellite photograph on the 28th of February 2022, the line of vehicles had grown to a colossal 35 miles long. The vehicles were stalled there for weeks. This wasn't supposed to be a real war. Zelensky and his government were supposed to flee. They were supposed to take the helicopter ride that Washington offered. The Ukrainians stood and fought, and Russia wasn't prepared. They didn't have fuel trucks for all of these vehicles. They all ran out of gas and then just sat there until they could be pulled back to the Belarus border. So Russia's desperate for a ceasefire, and they're going to continue these acts of terrorism against civilians because they don't know what else to do. Russian missile strike on Dnipro leaves 5 dead and dozens injured. According to local media, a Russian attack in Dnipro damaged a shopping center and caused a fire near a medical facility. A shopping center and a hospital, that's what the Russians chose to bomb. In broad daylight, for maximum civilian casualties. I will link these videos down below. Here's a statement from President Zelensky. Dnipro. Russian terrorists have struck our city again. As of now, 5 people have been killed and 34 injured, including a child. All necessary services are on site and rescuers are helping the victims. Only 2 things can stop this Russian terror: modern air defense systems and the long-range capabilities of our weapons. The world can protect lives, and it requires the determination of leaders. Determination that can and must make protection from terror the norm again. I see these pictures and videos every day. It's every day. Russia chooses to bomb a school or a church or a coffee shop or a concert hall, a hospital, a shopping center. There's no valid military targets. This is just terrorism. And Russia's panicking because they can't afford this war much longer. Putin knows going into this winter with half his oil refineries offline is going to be a disaster. The Russians are begging for relief at the moment. So I have to share just one story. Here's one of the survivors of this missile strike in Dnipro.
Вдвоєм ми з дівчинкою іменно в укритті почали молитися. Нам це дуже допомогло. Якщо чесно, да. Всі там кіпішували, а там з дівчинкою, слава Богу, все.
Ну, тобто це останній ваш робочий день сьогодні?
Да, я не буду вже не працювати. Я вже не видержу морально просто.
Ukraine is never going to surrender to Russian terrorism. They're going to fight back. Naval drones attack Russia's largest southern port in Novorossiysk overnight again. The drones were destroyed, but there's always tomorrow night. Video captures powerful detonation as Ukrainian drone strikes a Russian self-propelled gun. It's every day. Dozens of armored vehicles, dozens of artillery pieces, air defense systems. Russia just loses every day. Ukraine drone attack halts key Russian electrometallurgic plant. This was a kamikaze drone strike on Russia's defense industry, knocking these metal plants offline. Ukrainian pilots strike an ammo depot in Russian-occupied Crimea. Multiple explosions were reported in Sevastopol on Monday evening. This is just a fun video. I'm going to link it down below, but this is the detonation of ammunition on a Russian MTLB installed with an S-60 anti-aircraft gun. So these 3 Russian soldiers are going to put the round into the barrel, and it's going to explode in the gun. Is this a round from North Korea? Probably, but didn't end well for these 3 Russian soldiers. I'll link it down below. Quick story that's alarming. China is developing attack drone modeled on Iran's Shahed for Russia, reported by Bloomberg. I don't think this is the Chinese government doing it, but it's a Chinese company that wants to take Russian money by exporting the components, at least, for these kamikaze drones. Maybe they'll play a dance and try and be cute and put it in several separate pieces, send it to Russia, and Russia just has to screw it together, but we need China to not do this. And here's a strong statement from the Finnish president. One phone call from President Xi would end Russia's war. If you want a ceasefire, if you want peace in our time, we should be putting pressure on China, on President Xi. If Xi wanted this war to end, he would call Putin and say, pull out, otherwise I'm participating in sanctions. I will crush you. And that would end the war. But the Chinese, of course, are not going to do that. Let's get to the good news for Ukraine. U.S. allocates $2.2 billion for Patriot missiles. What's been happening is contracts have been delayed. Other countries around the world with Orders placed for Patriot missiles, they're all being delayed. Ukraine is going to get priority for newly manufactured Patriot missiles. Might not be good business for the defense company that makes them, but this is where the priority is. The United States also announced a $150 million aid package with the usual stuff: Hawk air defense missiles, artillery rounds, cluster munitions, Gimler's rounds, ATACMS. More news on air defense for Ukraine may come ahead of the upcoming NATO summit, according to Secretary Blinken. This could be related to Patriot systems coming from Israel. That's not final yet, but I think it will happen. But there might be other countries where a Patriot system has been found and can be donated to Ukraine. New Dutch Prime Minister assures Zelensky of further support for Ukraine. Despite recent far-right electoral gains, the Netherlands' new government, under the Prime Minister Dick Schoof, has pledged ongoing aid to Ukraine. Thank you so much to the new Dutch government. Ukraine receives 6,000 solar panels to help power their hospitals. This comes under an agreement with the European Commission, so not the best source of energy, but better than nothing. And this is going to be another hard winter for Ukraine's energy infrastructure. Final clip I have for you was uploaded this morning by the NAFO 69th Sniffing Brigade. And this is a clip of Ragnar Sass doing interviews with the units that received our trucks. So 9 of our vehicles were delivered about 2 weeks ago. There's actually another convoy happening later this week. And this is Ragnar giving his introduction for this quite detailed video from the NAFO 69th Brigade.
Hello fellas, unbelievable. The biggest convoy ever have arrived to Kiev, 25 cars. This is already convoy number 29. And it's not only cars. What we are doing, as you know, is how we can help more. Because it's a technological war. Humanity have never seen war which is developing so fast. So that's why it's not any more jammers. It's more and more what else we can bring. In this convoy, we have a drone which is competing with DJI. And this is all because of you keep helping. Also in this convoy, we have solution how to drive car to front line without driver in. And you know what is amazing, guys? Amazing is how much communities keep helping. We break records in May with Jake birthday campaign. It's unbelievable how much you guys are caring. And believe me, this makes heavy difference here in the war, helping Ukraine to stabilize and start to make some success step by step. So that's why, guys, please look at these soldier stories, the war stories, because the war is going on and we need to more and more help Ukraine technologically to win this war. Guys, thank you for this amazing support, because this makes difference. Slava Ukraine, we will win this war.
I'll link the entire thing down below. Once again, it's a series of interviews with all the units receiving a truck. In the description, if you scroll down, you can see which units got a truck from our campaign. At the 2-minute mark, this is the 132nd. At the 33-minute mark, this is the 415th Rifle Battalion, the 110th, the 46th, so forth and so forth. Of these 25 vehicles, 9 were ours, and we're going to have a lot of trucks in the next convoy and probably the convoy after that as well. So I'll link this down below if you want to check it out. It's a pretty amazing feeling. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.